Hello there, beautiful soul humans. Welcome to this next episode of Conceiving, Birthing, and Nurturing the Thrive Generation. I am delighted to be joined here by the wonderful Dr. Francoise Freedman and Julie Gerland, who I'll introduce properly in a second. Just want to introduce myself as well as Rosanna Rosie Glow-Hannes, the founder of the StarPeace movement, which is all about how we can create peace in 1 to 2 generations. You're absolutely right, Julie. The impact here really for us, and the reason we're having these conversations, is whether you're aware of it or not, there is a huge birth crisis going on, a maternity crisis. And recently there's been a lot of attention in the media about what's going on in the UK, within the hospitals, but also the free birthing movement. And it's not been a very nice expose in how it's been going on. Now, we would normally be joined by Vanessa Brooks as well, founder of Dara Luth. Unfortunately, she's having some technical issues, so she can't join us live right now, but she's been involved in these conversations too. And the point is, we are bringing different perspectives together. We're all from different backgrounds. Just to say a little bit more about Francoise, she's as I said, the Doctor of Medical Anthropology at Cambridge University. She's also the founder of Birthlight, and I was blessed to be under her wing for a whole 10 years, learning about all of this methodology. That is how we can help bring light and lightness to birth again, and minimize interventions, and actually do the repair work that would allow us to not have trauma passing from one generation to the next. It's called epigenetic trauma. It is real. Psychologists know about it. We have 60 years worth of pre and neonatal research that tells us how we can prevent, minimize, and remedy the issues that we're facing today. Yet we are in a crisis unlike any other. I've called this the maternity crisis. Is a world crisis, how to shape world peace through birth. And this is where I introduce the lovely Julie Gerland, who is the founder of, or co-founder of Birthing the New Humanity, the best-selling author of this book, Womb to Thrive, The Missing Key to Heal Yourself, Your Family, and the Planet. Also a hypnotherapist of many, many years, a perinatal advocate and teacher. And I want to just say a little bit about this as well. For those of you who don't know, there's a lot about birth in this book. People think it's about star seeds and aliens and all the rest of it, but actually it's really about how we become wired to thrive instead of survive. And I've learned so much from both these amazing women that I'm just going to give a platform to be heard here for you both. But we wanted to start off with addressing the problem, and then to really start talking about solutions, because when I talk about star-piecing something, I'm looking at how we shift the focus from the problem to the solution. And instead of pointing fingers and blaming and being in constant arguments about who's right and who's wrong, actually seeking the common ground. How can we unite towards a common goal? And that is the premise of all of this. So I'll just read out a little something that sparked this conversation, because we were going to have it a couple of weeks ago, and obviously it's been quite a time. So there was an article in The Independent. It's not safe, and no other profession is expected to stay awake, give care, and concentrate for that long. Now, this was a health watch. Midwives call for limits on dangerously long working hours, putting mothers and babies at risk. And Francoise actually said here, this article is the most devious of all. In the name of safety, tired midwives are not safe. Their shifts are illegal on all accounts. But they must raise a petition to be heard, a doomed strategy, as we know. We're wondering, all of us, whose interests are behind this systematic, visibly orchestrated, multi-fronted, vicious demolition campaign that exploits public fear and undermines hard-earned women's rights to be attended by midwives again after the 1960s Peels Act. So this is the premise. And there are all sorts of things going on. I mean, one of the most shocking facts is that today there are more women and babies dying in hospitals than 20 years ago. I only heard that from Francoise today. I'm blown away. I mean, I used to be very heavily involved with Croydon University Maternity Hospital. Croydon University Maternity Services. I was involved with that hospital as a chair and co-chair of their Maternity Services Liaison Committee. And in the time I was working with them, they went from one of the worst performing units in the country to one of the best. I know it's not the case anymore. We are dealing with higher cesarean rates than we've ever had. And the issue is huge. It is political. It is not just about women and babies. This is about all of us. Because if we want peace on earth, we have to look at birth. We know that the research speaks to it. So I'm going to hand the baton over. Who would like to start this conversation with what's really speaking to you right now?
Oh, go on, Julie.
Go on, Julie. So, well, what I would like to say, and thank you very much, Rosie, for inviting us and getting this conversation going. It is just so important. But in all my years of advocacy on this, we haven't yet struck a note in people's hearts. Why should they pay attention? Why should you, who are listening to us, why should you care? Why? What is the thing about this? It's not just about mums and babies. It's about us. It's about every single human being because we've been through this process and the process has been dragged through the mud. You know, it's just screaming and, you know, blood and guts, and who wants to know about that? But in the years that I have deepened my understanding of this process, it is something absolutely stunningly beautiful. It is nature's way, beautiful way of bringing something that doesn't exist yet and manifesting a human being on the planet. And so my call is to have a whole new press, a whole new image of what mothering and birthing really is. And then we will not dare to tear the wings of the butterfly that is emerging, because that's what we're doing now. You know, mothers are not able to give their best. Babies are not able to come into the world with a smile on their face. And yet this is normal. So we really have to change collectively. We have to make it sexy, dare I say, that this whole process is something that is emerging as probably the most important thing that human beings have yet to discover about ourselves. And when we do, we'll be gobsmacked.
Aho to that. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, you've just reminded me that I was having a conversation with one of my clients this morning, and they were talking about the fact that one of their friends, through some kind of medicinal journey, like plant medicine journey, had really tried to understand, without having any awareness, this is a man, have any awareness of anything to do with birth trauma, why he had such severe anxiety. And through this exploration, he was shown the incubator that he spent his earliest life in. And he could feel the fear of not being able to breathe, of being challenged. So, you know, this affects all of us. And we just do not understand how we are shaped for the rest of our lives unless we do work to heal it by our earliest experience, our conception, time in the womb, birth, immediate postpartum, first year, first 7 years. And actually, many, many politicians know this. So the question is, why isn't anything being done about it? And what is being done in the name of science that is not scientific at all? Francoise, over to you.
Well, I think that maternity services need to be more inclusive of trauma, and that every pregnant woman ideally would have a healing process because she has imprints from her mother, her grandmother, all her lineage. And this as Julie was saying, this detracts from the beauty of the birth process. And I would say perhaps not make it more sexy, but more sacred. We need to recover the spiritual and the sacredness of birth. And when a being comes into this world, yes, and this is why people like Frédéric Le Boyer and many other birth advocates have taken the perspective of babies. Suddenly they had an epiphany about how is the baby living this incarnation, and how we completely mistreat the newborns. I mean, we used to hang them by one foot and slap them to make them cry. And there is so much evidence showing that gentle birthing is actually much better. And there is even long-term cohorts showing better health results. So why do we ignore all this evidence?
Yeah.
And the more we bring this evidence forward, the more, and Michel Audin has tried to do this with his Primal Health archive, but we need to shout it over the rooftops and say, look, the evidence is all there, and you ignore it at a very high cost for humanity. I mean, when I read that routine episiotomy is still practiced in most world's hospitals, when we know very well that it's totally counterproductive, at least in 80% of tear prevention. Why is this? This is totally illogical, irrational. We are the irrational people here. And the indigenous midwives who object to having their bodies cut in that way in hospital and are tied up to and dragged into hospital to be cut, they are the rational beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is so poignant, because it's why are we, you also mentioned another statistic to me just before we went live, which is that only 16% of procedures are evidence-based, and yet we are keep perpetuating them. I mean, in England we have the NICE guidelines, which, you know, we know that a very small percentage is grade A evidence. I remember at one of our conferences that we discussed this, Francoise, at the Birthlight conference. Do you remember the statistic on that one?
No, I don't. I don't have the nice statistics at the top of my.
I think it was about 22% was only grade A. You know, I mean, this whole 16% of procedures are based is shocking.
I've just read several articles about how the guidelines have been constricting midwifery practice in the last 10 years in a way that has forced midwives to toe the line with protocols that are not evidence-based.
And the midwives that have a real heart-centered approach, the ones I've met, have all left the service because they've been burnt out. It's why I stopped doing the work that I was doing in terms of as a doula, and also as, you know, in the pregnancy classes. It just becomes unbearable if you're really sensitive to keep dealing with one story after another and feeling like you're having a fight. Why are we having a fight when we know that the guidelines are meant to be protective, but in the end we're facing the fear of litigation first and foremost?
Yes.
Right? And so this then influences everybody, and God help you if you deviate from what you've been told to do and something goes wrong, your head's on the line. And we talked in a previous episode about there being a massive witch hunt going on, right? But if we just bring this to the fact that we are living in a world today where there are still wars going on, which seems incredibly mad to me when we're supposedly civilized and becoming more and more civilized. And yet, you know, I'm seeing, and I just wanted to speak to, you know, the fact that we've had Nadia Sawalha, we've had Paloma Faith, Charlotte Church, all incredibly vocal women speaking out against the atrocities of what's been going on in Gaza, and, you know, taking to the streets. Paloma Faith is pregnant again now. I think she's heavily pregnant. She might even be having her baby already. And yet no one is really making the connection with the fact that war is being perpetuated because we are all traumatized and we're acting out again and again history as a way of trying to make sense of it, because that's what we do. I'll never forget when Patrick Hauser and you had the Fathers to Be guys come over, and they did a talk at one of the conferences, Francoise, the Birthlight conferences. And it was actually about how rapists or serial killers, when you looked at their history and you looked at their birth, you could see that there was the instruments or the way that they actually took people's lives was was relating to the way they were born, or being a failed abortion, or some challenge that had gone on. So, it is time now for this to be information everybody understands, right? Anything either of you like to share to that?
Yes, but the inequities of birth also need to be highlighted, because the fact that if you're Black in the UK, you're 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than if you're white or even Asian. And the death of Janelle Green Smith, who was only 31 in South Carolina, who died giving birth to her first baby on January the 2nd as a young Black RCN midwife, Dr. Janelle Green Smith. This is so shocking. And we don't seem to be able to find a way to make this better in the UK, in the States, anywhere where there are Black populations. And Jenny Joseph, who is a Black midwife in the UK, midwife, activist, educator, elder, was her testimony, her condolences, her commentary about this death was very poignant. So it's also we need to honor our Black sisters.
Yes. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. I mean, it's so interesting. You're bringing to mind for me some of the training I did with you and with the late Wendy. Remind me of her last name.
Gadsden.
Yes. I mean, I went out to New Zealand with her, and I remember she was so great at teaching pelvis shapes. And this is one of my favorite things to share in birth preparation sessions, was like, how you can optimize the space and look at, you used to talk about the shelf that can happen, particularly with Somalian women, where they have a big shelf, and it's very, I'm talking about the shape of the spine and helping the baby come into the pelvis, that this was an issue that they could get stuck at the top. Is there anything there that you feel is related to this?
No, I think it's to do with the other complementary factors, the fact that there is more illness, which is also socially caused, more morbidity, and that Black women bring this to the maternity wards. But in the case of Janelle Greensmith, I don't think that was the case. She died of a postpartum hemorrhage. She died of what's called postnatal preeclampsia. But what preeclampsia? Yes, I don't quite understand what postnatal preeclampsia is about. So the causes of death are given in ways that are quite nebulous.
You're bringing up now something. So just to quote Vanessa, she sent a message. So Vanessa Brooks is the founder of Daraluth. Vanessa Brooks is a lay midwife, an advocate for natural birth, and she has assisted many women and put her name on the line, put herself on the line many times, as anyone is involved in birth. But one of the earlier conversations we had was actually about free birthing, unassisted birth, and how this was getting really, really bad press in the UK. And there are obviously situations that are really not great at all, and babies and mothers have died as a result. But as you said earlier, Francoise, it's like we're in a really polarized place where the women and their partners who make this decision are often very well informed and actually very brave in the decision that they're making, and they know they're facing a whole load of unknowns in a hospital environment where they're supposed to feel safe, but they don't feel safe at all because they know the issues that are going on. And I know for me, I did not want to give birth in a hospital because I was terrified of having my power taken away. And I was a young woman who was scared of the birth but did not want to be there. So I planned a home birth. But I went on 4 days of labor, like 3 nights before my baby was born, because I did have a pelvis that meant my baby hadn't engaged. I was terrified. So I was like pushing away the process rather than going with it. And I thought I'd prepared, but I had with my head, not with my body. So, it's one of the things I say in the book. There's 3 things that will really help one, an environment that fosters safety, people around you that, you know, believe you can do this and support you in that and are not bringing their fear into the room. Two, that there is an alignment between the mother's body, her cervix, and the baby's head, and the positioning of the baby that is optimal. And three, that the woman that's giving birth has addressed her fears. You used to call it the skeletons in the closet, I think, in the nursery. And this is key. But let's just bring this in quickly. So recent reports from October 25 indicate a tragic incident in Agadir, Morocco, where 8 pregnant women died in Hassan II Regional Hospital following C-section deliveries, sparking protests. These deaths highlight risks like hemorrhage. Again, what you were talking about, a leading cause of maternal mortality, emphasizing the need for improved maternal health care in the region. The incident was around October 25. What happened was these women all died, and the outcome was the tragedy led to public outrage and youth-led demonstrations in the city. Now, that's great that the youth are speaking up, but it's horrendous that this is happening. And the only way we all know to speak up and say no is to take to the streets, which is what we've had to do through COVID, through everything that has gone on when we've had to say no, thank you. But at this point, I mean, this is where I see this relationship between the fact that it seems there is a systematic dissolution of positive birth environments and structures, if you like. And I'd love to turn this around a little bit now and say, okay, well, how can we see a way through this? You know, we've got the 60 years of research. We've got many elders, many, like we were talking about this, you know, different age groups who have been holding this wisdom of bringing the sacredness back into birth, of how we can birth gently with minimal intervention, of how if we do need an intervention, we can do the repair work. We can stay in conscious connection with the baby, the mother, the partner. We can prepare mind, body, soul, and heart for this. What are your feelings and thoughts?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is when we really bring in to all the healthcare services the fact that there is the mind, body, soul connection, and that we cannot divorce. We cannot say it's just the body or just mental health, but it's all connected. And we know very easily that if we're afraid, our body is going to secrete adrenaline, which is now a health concern. So it is all connected. I think, Rosie, something you said just before we went live was, this is political. So it's really from the top down. And one of the presentations I gave a number of years ago in Barcelona at an obstetric conference, I asked after my presentation if anybody would like to make any comments or ask any questions. And an older obstetrician took the microphone and, looking down, he said, governments should make more laws to force women to do what we want them to do. I was gobsmacked, and we all were. It's like, really? So I think he was just able to voice what is behind the mask, that there is a mask. And I've seen it here in France, where I've lived for 40 years. The doctors say to me, most of them, or many that I've met, including medical professors and the head obstetrician from our area, for example, he says, Madame, we're with you. But if our home birth rate goes beyond 3%, we get a memorandum which says, do what it takes and get it back to 3%, no more than 3%. So it's dictated down the line, and it's nothing to do with mothers, it's nothing to do with babies, it's nothing to do with anybody in the hospital situations. So I think we need to go back up the stream and address this. And now, as we can see, the world political situation is that the skeletons are coming out of the cupboards. And this is another one that needs to be addressed at that top level, because it is against all human rights. all basic human rights.
Mm.
And having lobbied at the UN for a number of years, UN women won't touch this. You know, I brought the idea of maternal empowerment because they talk about empowering women, girls go to school, girls can get a job, girls can have equal pay. And then we said, well, what about maternal empowerment? It was like, we don't want to know.
Yeah.
Go on, Francoise.
Well, the thing is that the people at the top, unfortunately, they've closed ranks with the medical model.
Yeah.
And we are advocates of the social model, together with all the women who've had, all the mothers, every woman who's had a baby. I think probably about 90% would support a social model of care, because that's what's needed when you're in labor. That's what's needed when you're with a newborn and you don't know what to do. But unfortunately, the political dominant view is technocratic. Is that you manage risk on a statistical basis, and even in the face of the research evidence, in the face of scientific research. And this is what we are dealing with. This dominance, well, Michel Foucault said it. It's surveillance. It's discipline and punish. It's the society we have collectively created, and we are living with it. But we need to resist it from within.
Mm.
From the margins, from the center, from everywhere. And we have lots of ammunition to do this. One is the links between violence and maternal trauma. I mean, James Prescott and all these people in the States have demonstrated that years ago, these very strong links. And you mentioned some of the criminals' birth records. That's absolutely true. But also the morbidity that comes at the cost of this maternal system. And we have maternal mental health. The fact that maternal suicide around birth is the main cause of women's death now in the world is very shocking. Why do women kill themselves?
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. And if we were all very clear on the fact that this we want to say, look, there is an issue. It has to be addressed. And what I was hearing as you were both talking is, this is the impact of the patriarchal paradigm. We've come from the matriarchal paradigm into a patriarchal paradigm. I can just say, as I step back, from an overarching StarPeace perspective, well, neither were in balance. We're now coming into an era that I would call uniarchy. So if we say the moon was governing, if you like, the matriarchal time, the sun, the patriarchal time, now the stars are influencing us all. And it's the time of the divine child. It's the time. It was actually Anne Baring that talked this way. She's a history, I think, she's a doctor of history at Oxford University. And I was blown away by what she had shared. It really was of interest. But now when I hear you, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's top down. This is a system of control, dominate through fear, dominate through, this is the way. We must suppress, we must control things because we are too scared of anything else. And we all have a terrible relationship with death. I remember Michel Audon talking about the fact that, birth is getting sanitized, death is getting sanitized. And, in the end, we're just disconnected from our hearts, from our emotions. We're automatons in the end, much easier to just comply. I love the fact that you said resist and not fight, Francoise, because everyone's fighting for change and everyone wants to save the world, but actually it's an inside job. And, if we fight, we create division. Resisting, putting pressure, stating boundaries, that's a different state, right? That's a very different state. And we are so much more powerful than we realize. So let's just go on the basis that we know our political leaders the people who are making decisions at the top level are all birth traumatized themselves, right? And they're not looking to actually deal with that. But let's imagine a world for a minute. Let's take the next 5 minutes or so to imagine a world where every political leader is part of their being inaugurated, if you like, that they must look at their birth story. They must do some kind of work to understand whether they're in survival or thriving. I mean, I remember you talked about that, Julie, at the conference with Francoise where I met you. And let's also say that as part of maternity training, whether you're an obstetrician, a midwife, an attendant on any level, it is part of your training that you will deal with your own trauma, your own story, be supported to manage when there is a difficult birth, to overcome it. I mean, if we took the money spent on defense, right, and put it towards birth and maternity and conception, how might that change things? What are your visions?
Well, I think that if we allocated the money spent on litigation in the provision of truly midwifery-led units, things would get better, and perhaps invite the managers of these large concentrated maternity hospitals to spend maybe a day a month in the birth unit and see what's going on there, and see how stressed the midwives are with their long shifts, and how blaming them, inciting the public to blame midwives for lack of safety is the criminal act. And the managers depend on the politicians ultimately, but they also have a lot of say. And the junior doctors have shown that by going on strike. And this has not been seen as the best step by quite a few people, but it's a political act. Now, whether we can get better results from political acts like that, from marching in the streets or going on strike, or by initiatives that are perhaps more creative, like a visit of the manager to the birth unit, or multiplying women's testimonies of beautiful birth as well as testimonies of traumatic birth, because most maternity professionals today have never seen a non-interfered birth. And I think Vanessa mentioned that in our first conversation. And how can they support women when they don't know what it's about? Of course, fear would get into the process. So I think we are looking for solutions, looking for ways of resistance. And I take my cues from the indigenous midwives, who have so many ways of resisting. And some of the ways they resist is to talk about plants as their babies, to defend their gardens, to defend the place where they bury their placenta. I mean, we've lost touch with all this. It's an embodied, to go back to an embodied empowerment. That's gone out of the window. That's why the anxiety and the depression are so damaging to the children as well.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, look, it amazes me that we have so, when I think of, I know we touched on this before, but when you think of antenatal classes in a hospital, or a birth preparation session, which is really about what drugs you can take and at what point you come to the hospital, and nothing to do with how to be consciously connected to your baby, how to move through emotions during your pregnancy. One of the things I was talking to my sister-in-law, I was like, look, you can't hide emotions from your baby, so don't. Just be honest with how you're feeling. Educate them in the womb. You're telling them about the world around you. Like, women don't know this. And so they go on Google or they go and they research something that says, don't lie on your back when you're pregnant, and they're 10 weeks pregnant and not lying on their back. And everything, the information is so skewed. And yet, let's just remember, everyone, if you're watching this, we've only really had tech for a very short period of time. And yet there's over 8 billion people on this planet. So, we're not here because we're having babies at, inducing babies at 38, 39 weeks, because that's the right thing to do. In fact, if there's one thing we're doing with our tech is minimizing our capacity to reproduce in the future on lots of levels, right? So it is very important we start to have these candid, honest, open conversations. And ladies, if you're thinking about having a baby, go 2-3 generations up and hear from them, hear from the wisdom of the elders, because things have got really twisted up since we took birth into hospital, which really coincided with world wars as well. Julie, what would you like to say to this?
So it's so deep and so absolutely central to everything. If we start thinking of what kind of place do we want, that we are powerful and that we can create change. If we've created a mess, we can create beauty and harmony everywhere. So how do we actually step into our power as individuals and collectively, and really start to envisage the type of world that we want to have? Because this old one is crumbling down. I think everybody can see that. So let it crumble down. We don't need to shake the tree. All we need to do is to put something in its place. First of all, inside ourselves. What do we need to know about birth? And that whole process that nature has so intelligently created, from the conception or the fertility, the conception, all the way through pregnancy. We have so much to learn. We don't need to colonize Mars. We need to understand ourselves and ourselves. What is going on? What is that connection? What is the mother living? What is the father living? Understand the process then of birth preparation, of breastfeeding. When I tell people or my students, even about breastfeeding, just that would change the world.
Yes, totally.
But we haven't understood. To think today, with all the science that's available, that people really think that Nestle's milk formula is the same as breast milk. I mean, and a lot of people still do. So that it's completely interchangeable. So I think we really, really need to do an update on what is this process? How is the feminine body being made in such an incredibly remarkable way to bring this new life to full term and to full thriving?
Yeah.
And this needs to be the new foundation of what will now take over from the crumbled society.
I hear you, and I'm seeing this vision of the new structures being placed. It's like the scaffolding around the old world. We're creating the new one around it, and it's actually, I think you said this at the start, which was even about the archetype of the mother. The mother, as we know, in this patriarchal society, and I'll just call it that because that's really where we've been for a long time, is self-sacrificing, is at the bottom of the pile of importance, has to...
There's no social status.
No social status.
You can't turn up somewhere and say, well, I'm a mother, I'd like to say something about this. No, they say, have you got a PhD? Which university did you go to? What, are you a doctor? Are you No, I'm a mother. I'm not actually personally, but she can't say that. And yet we're bringing up her children. And she has no say. This for me is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
Because what I've said at the UN is that mothers have been mandated by nature.
Yes. Yes.
By nature to bring this seed up to full fruition so that it can then fully live its life. That's the task of the mother. And she, if we allow her and support her, like any tree or flower or whatever, is that nature knows how to do it. But she has got to have the conditions. She's got to have the good soil. She's got to have the right amount of light, the right amount of warmth. So if we were to give mothers all those conditions, then she knows what to do, not with the head, but that intelligence, that innate intelligence in her just knows. So we have to go from this left brain mind, I learned that in a book, to how do you know that? I just know. And I've said that all my life. And I've been thrown out of so many different places because you can't just say that. Somebody, you've got to quote it from somebody, you've got to say, but yet, particularly women, but all human beings, there are things that they do just know. We have to validate that.
Claircognizance, clairsentience, these are intrinsic to us. Our extrasensory perceptions are as intrinsic as our senses, and we've somehow been separated from them through time, and tech is also playing its part, but tech can be part of the solution, not the problem. We'll have that as a different conversation, but for now, what I'd love to do is just bring this to a close and invite our viewers, like, if you love what we're saying, please share this video, please comment. We want to hear from you. We want to hear, what do you know about your birth story, about what is your experience of giving birth, and also your own experience of having been born. If you made a connection between this and how your life is going, do you feel wired to survive or wired to thrive? Let's we want to invite more of you who are involved in this. If you are someone who is involved with birth, with pregnancy, with conception, and you want to speak to this topic on a solution-focused platform, let us know. Get in touch with us, because this is a conversation that's going to grow. We're at the embryonic stage. This is preconception. We're into the soil, right?
I think we've conceived.
Yeah, no, you're right, actually. You're right.
I think the seed is implanted and now needs to be given the right conditions to grow optimally. Let's put it that way.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Thank
But
you.
I just want to make a little remark, that is, birth is not devoid of risks. And throughout humanity, there have been risks. And people have tried to manage this risk, to find ways to encourage the physiological process of birth, as Julie has described it beautifully. But we focused on the pathologies, and I think this has been a massive overfocus. And the free birthers remind us of this intuition that they can trust their bodies. But we have to strike a balance between the research, which is phenomenal, on the physiology of birth, which is totally ignored in current maternity hospitals. It's like sledgehammer strategy, instead of empowering this beautiful process that our bodies have put in place. So I think we cannot go black and white. We need to navigate here between the fact that birth is not devoid of danger, but it's not intrinsically dangerous either.
That's beautifully put. That is beautifully put. And I think this is the thing, is we're living in a risk-averse society. And actually, this takes me right back to the three-pronged formula for peace, because the first part is what you focus on grows. So, if we're focused on the fact that, yeah, things can happen, but actually, for the most part, they go well. And this used to be midwifery training. You're expecting it to go well and looking for signs of that and seeing if it deviates and then playing a part. But for us now, accepting that we're all on a short journey here on this planet. We're all going to be born into bodies and we're all going to leave these bodies. But one thing we all have in common as well is our connection to our soul consciousness, and the fact that we believe our consciousness continues beyond physical form. And what's gone on in this world to this day is we've had religion come in, and I'm not anti-religion, but I just want to say, with this constant religion science debate, that the scientists eschew religion, and then religion has created this kind of an intermediary between source consciousness that's in us all and our own soul consciousness, which is source consciousness. And now we're coming back to it and saying, okay, well, why don't we, our relationship with death, our relationship with birth, they're both related here. And actually being able to accept that there is risk and look to minimize it, not from a place of fear, from contraction, from expecting things to go wrong, but actually to create the best conditions, to set the best conditions. This is the invitation. Any final words that you'd like to share, Julie or Francoise, before we say goodbye? And Francoise. Yeah. You feeling complete?
Yes. I think you've looped it beautifully.
Thank you. Well, it's, as always, a joy to be here with you both. And
I'd just like to say, Rosie, what you've just said, in other areas of our life, such as you take a car out or you learn to drive. My husband was a pilot. If he went to work every day thinking of all the things that could go wrong, it would be an absolute nightmare, and there would be many more crashes. So once, there is the proper training, then there is a constant awareness of looking around, of, if any of the alarm goes off, to be aware and to be able to be trained to be able to handle situations of an emergency. But at the same time, we're either driving our car or flying a plane or many other things that we do, which are a risk, right? I mean, it's a high risk to take a car out on a busy road today, right? And yet we do it with confidence and training and concentrating and awareness and presence. And we all then have a pretty good chance of getting from A to B. So I think that these things are experienced in other areas and can easily be applied to birth.
Confidence in our innate intelligence, wisdom, and intuition. It's all there. We can tap into it. It's in the field. This is what it's all about. So just thank you. Thank you both for sharing this time with me. Anyone who's interested in what we do, check out the text box and we'll put some links as where you can find out more about what we're each doing. Also, I mean, Francoise has actually authored many books herself as well. And the methodology around the OG really of perinatal training, in terms of, from my perspective, safe. When we say safe, we use this word, and you have to roll your eyes sometimes, but the practices that I learned with you in terms of maternity, maternal yoga, perinatal yoga, baby yoga, all of this came from the indigenous tribe that you were spending time with as well in the Amazon, right, Francoise? So if anyone would like to know more, I mean, all these books, certainly mine and Julie's, are available on Amazon. Your books are available in where can people find the Birthlight books?
Online.
Okay, cool. So we'll put links for that. But like, I really intend, it's my intention, I know all of us, that anyone who's stumbled across this, even by accident, that it's opened your eyes, your hearts, your minds, your souls to what is possible. And it does affect us all. It does affect us all, because every one of us has been born. So please do share this with the world, because the more that we bring attention to this, the faster we'll change things. not just in terms of maternity services, but also in terms of the fighting going on in the world, the wars, the political craziness. We bring us into unified consciousness. So thank you. Happy Friday, everybody. We'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
Look
Thank
forward
you.
to our next
Very
conversation.
important.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone who's watching this, please subscribe, follow, do the all notifications, and let's get this out into the world. Thank you. Take care for now.